Anand, do you see these waves rising in the ocean and merging into the ocean water? While walking on the beach, Buddha asked this question to his beloved disciple Anand, and Anand nodded his head. Yes, today, and being immortal is like water. Birth and death are like waves. Anand, waves are long, shallow waves are high, and low waves also rise and fall, but their water remains water. It is not possible for waves to form without water. Waves return and become water again. Waves are water and soon they are waves. Although waves rise and fall, if they understand that they themselves are water, then they can reach beyond the notions of birth and death. They will not have to worry about birth and death. Neither fear nor sorrow will remain for Anand with Mercury. Not much time had passed yet. That's why he had so many questions in his mind. Anand lovingly folded his hands and asked the Buddha that it is understandable after listening to the Tathagata that life and death are like these waves. But how can this feeling be assimilated? How can it be understood in its fullness? How can it be ours? Accept the mind so that all the troubles go away from our life. Your explanation calmed my arguments, but my mind did not calm down. After all, how to calm this mind? How to explain it? Buddha said in a very calm voice. Our mind is made of 18 parts. Without these 18 parts, our mind does not have any independent power. When you understand these 18 parts well, you are no longer a slave to your mind. You become the master of that whose reins are in your hands. After that, you do not run after your mind, but your mind works according to you. In these 18 parts, first of all, there are the senses, or the objects of the senses, and the consciousness that is born through the 6 senses. This is the river of peace. The power of sight, the power of hearing, the power of smell, taste, the body, the consciousness, and the mental consciousness, and the subjects of these Chonryo are form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and the subjects of mind, and the 6 consciousnesses. The senses which take birth are as follows. Without these 18 parts of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and understanding, there is no mind. These 18 degrees are tied to birth, death, and change. That is why I say that the mind is a collection of different types of emotions, the nature of which is changeable. You have understood that our mind is made up of these 18 parts, but it is also important to understand that whatever taste, smell, or thing these parts enjoy the most, that is what becomes of our mind. That's what makes our mind cool. You understand that if you are feeling hot and suddenly a cool breeze starts coming from somewhere in front of you, you are walking in front of the sea and a cool breeze starts blowing on your face. With this, the wind will touch your body, which will give you pleasure, and your mind will always be ready to get that pleasure. That is why your mind becomes a slave in this way. Wherever he enjoys, he becomes a slave to the same thing. Anand said that Tathagata, we have understood that our mind is powerless. It has no power of its own. Without the senses, there is no existence without the objects of the senses. But in reality, the mind also exists, or it is just an illusion of ours. Buddha calmly looked at the table on which a cup filled with water was kept. Pointing towards it, Buddha said, "Is that cup full or empty?" "Lord, the cup is filled with water." "Anand, bring this cup out and make it empty." Anand did the same. Buddha picked up the empty cup kept on the table and turned it upside down and asked, "Anand, now is this cup heavy or empty, Guruvar? Now it is not full, it is empty, Anand. This cup is no longer filled with water, but is filled with air. You completely forgot this. To be empty means to be empty of something, and to be full means to be filled with something. At this time, this cup is empty of water, but is filled with air. Whether the cup of joy becomes full or empty depends on whether we are present here or not. Without the cup, it cannot be empty or full." Anand said with folded hands, "Lord, and then you keep the thoughts running in our mind. If different types of desires keep arising, then it means that the mind is in reality. It has its own power." Buddha smiled and said, "Anand, don't get trapped in jargon. The existence of the mind is so subtle that it cannot be understood with ordinary concepts. Their existence is the same as the existence of emptiness. Anand, just now we discussed the full and empty cup. Although we understood that the cup kept on the table was empty of water, if we look deeply, these were also full. Anand is not true. Don't you see the presence of water element in the elements from which the cup is made?" Anand said that cup maker had kneaded clay to make the cup. There was definitely water in it. Anand was right. If we look deeply, water element is present in the cup. Although we said earlier that the cup is soon empty, the existence of the cup depends on the existence of water. Anand, are you able to see the fire element in this cup? Yes, Lord. Fire element is necessary to cook the cup.
This cup cannot be cooked without heat or fire element. Buddha asked, "What else are you seeing besides this?" Anand replied that I am also looking at the air element. Had there been no air, neither fire would have burned, nor
Would cup maker have survived? I am able to see in it the workmanship of cup maker skilled hands, his consciousness, his kiln, the trees from which wood comes to fire the kiln, the rain, the sunlight and the earth from which those trees grow. Lord, I can see those thousands of mutually dependent elements, who help in making this cup come into existence. Buddha said that by meditating on the very beautiful Anandpali, one can see all the elements that exist inside and outside it. Your own consciousness is also one of those elements. If you return the heat to the sun, return the soil to the earth, return the water to the stream, return the potter to his parents, and return the wood to the trees of the forest, then is it possible for the cup to exist? By meditating on Ananda, we will find that the cup cannot come into power independently. The same thing applies to our mind also. Our mind has no independent existence. It comes into existence only when our senses function. The beautiful appearance seen by the eyes enters our mind and fascinates our mind. In the same way, good taste, good words, good songs enter our mind through our eyes, and they establish their power in our mind. But Anand, if a man remains alert towards his ministers, remains conscious, remains fully attentive, then he will be able to see those subjects entering his mind through his senses, by which his mind becomes enslaved. But a person who is not conscious keeps creating various types of shackles for his mind, and he never understands why his mind is so sad. Why is his mind so enslaved? Whatever matters enter our mind through the senses. They are analyzed by our intellect. But if our consciousness is asleep, then our intellect becomes useless. It becomes useless. Our intelligence remains of no use if our consciousness is alert. Our intelligence is awakened. Then we are able to see and realize that no experience of life remains eternal. It gives pleasure only as long as that object continues to exist. For example, when you eat a sweet apple, it can give you pleasure only so long. As long as you keep eating it, after that apple ceases to exist, our mind has nothing left to hold on to. All the fun goes away, but this is where the problem arises. His senses try to tie his mind to this taste. She tries to remind him again and again how sweet that apple was, and that is why his mind keeps longing to get that apple. But the thing to be understood here is that if his intellect is alert, then he will be able to understand this. No one exists forever. He will not cease to exist, and that is why our mind will also have to disappear. It will have to go into emptiness, because once our mind gets tied to the objects of our senses, it will always become a slave to the objects of those senses. Will remain. But once the mind becomes free from the objects of the senses, the mind has no power left. After that, our senses will only do their work, because our intellect is sitting above our senses as their master, which is making them work. What this means is that once the mind disappears, our senses experience the truth. She does not get influenced by any subject and looks at it with an illusion, but looks at it from the same point of view, feels it in the same way as it has its own form, its own existence. For example, when you eat a sweet apple, once your soul tastes its sweet taste, then whenever you see another apple, you will remember the same taste. But it is not necessary that every apple turns out to be equally sweet. That is why our vision gets confused because of that taste. It goes astray, and it is not able to see the apple in its true form. A man indulged in lust tries to get the same pleasure again and again, but every time he wants to get the same pleasure with a different person, and that is why he continues the cycle of lust. He keeps getting entangled in it, because once he experiences pleasure through his senses, that pleasure gets established in his mind, and his mind tries to divert him from door to door to get that pleasure. Addressing Anand, he said that, "Have you ever seen the life of a monk? How simple his life is. He eats simple food, sleeps on a simple bed, and sometimes even sleeps on the floor. Neither does he ever listens to the melody, and does not try to taste anything new. One always remains away from the subject matter, and hence it becomes very easy to concentrate on it. He is able to feel those depths of meditation, and he is able to achieve that state of ecstasy, which no other material can ever bring him. Any subject matter can give you some pleasure for a limited time, but bliss is that which is not connected to any subject matter, which is eternal, which is true, but that bliss can remain eternal only then. It is when our mind disappears. You must have heard from many people that we do not feel like doing this work, or we feel very interested in this work. In reality, when the mind gets lost, then we get the same pleasure in every work as we get in doing our interesting work. It's fun. He feels the same joy in doing every work,
but it becomes possible only when he erases his mind, when he attains the state of ecstasy. And only then the mind can be eradicated, or only then ecstasy can be achieved. It can be achieved when we remain fully alert towards the objects of our senses, be fully conscious. After this, Buddha asked everyone to
that meditation, so that they can become aware of their senses. Buddha told them that today when you meditate, be fully aware of yourself. What do your ears hear? When you become alert to how your skin feels, and to all the senses, you will know how objects enter your mind. After this, Buddha, Ananda and all his disciples went into deep meditation.